I don't mean to be the dead horse, but I think you're going to get this question a lot. I think we're trying to understand why the administration secretary, Matt, I think it was November the 4th, he said from this podium, we are going to look at the results. And the results so far, that was the little assessment by him that day, are not good enough. And then here you are, about a week later, you're effectively giving Israel a pass on this.
We are not giving. We're not giving Israel a pass. First of all, the efforts and the things that we had seen in place a week ago certainly were not satisfactory. But I am standing here before you with new and additional information. It is up to you to intake it or process it however you like. But when we were talking about this last week, just again, the new crossing at Kisufim, that had not been opened. Erez had not been reopened. This waiving of a customs requirement in the Jordanian corridor had not been in place. These additional routes within Gaza had not been in place. So these are the kinds of resultant steps that we were talking about a week ago. These are the kinds of things we were talking about when we outlined that letter. There is nobody in this administration saying that the humanitarian situation in Gaza is pristine. It is a humanitarian. It continues to be a crisis, and it continues to be dire circumstances. And the point is, we want to see changes like these being made consistently and over an extended period of time. Our hope is that things like these have created the operational throughput. They have created the capacity. They have reduced some barriers that will make it so that the aid can get to the places where it needs to go. And if we do not continue to see steps like this in the right direction, then certainly we would find the government out of compliance with U.S. law. But Humaira, the important thing, and I'm not trying to harp on this, is that there are new things that have been done. You can choose to disagree with whether it's enough or not, and humanitarian groups can choose to disagree whether it's enough. And we certainly are not saying that it is a silver bullet, but there are new progress markers that have been made in terms of trying to be responsive to what is happening in the humanitarian context.
We have seen those steps, but what we're trying to tell you is that the U.S. government has explicitly said the steps themselves is not going to be enough. We need to see the results on the ground. So you keep telling me they have taken steps, and whether or not I find them satisfactory, I think that's quite irrelevant. The relevance is that what is the situation on the ground? And you're describing it as dire. That's why we're trying to. But I don't want to say.
We couldn't agree more, Humaira. We couldn't agree that the situation is dire.
I actually have a question. Yeah. You keep talking about ongoing assessment. When do you intend to do this? This administration has less than 70 days in office. And the humanitarian aid situation is a problem that's been going on over a year. It's clear that you had trouble convincing Israel to boost measures to improve humanitarian aid. What makes you think that you're going to achieve that in the remaining time, if at all?
So first, let me just say, assessing the humanitarian situation and assessing steps and ways that we can continue to support that line of effort is not something that starts or stops. So to your question about timing, we were looking at the humanitarian situation in Gaza before October 7th, in the time since, and we'll continue to be engaged on this. When it comes to the letter, we were looking at the humanitarian situation in Gaza before this letter was sent, and we will continue to look closely at the humanitarian situation in Gaza after this 30-day period is up. We are constantly assessing and evaluating, and if we do not see consistent progress, if we do not see the results on the ground, then we will, of course, make appropriate assessments about their compliance with international law and compliance with U.S. law, and that'll continue to be the case.
Just a few more things.
Yeah.
What was Legal Bureau's input in this?
I'm just not going to get into the deliberative process or speak to specifics. What I can say and what we have said before as it relates to this, these are deliberative processes that include input from not just across the State Department, but across the interagency, as well as those individuals who are on the front lines of working on these very serious humanitarian issues.
Right, but given this is an assessment or on whether or not a country is violating U.S. law, could we assume that State Department's legal bureau concluded that Israel is not violating US law?
I'm not here to offer an assessment or even a legal assessment on how a particular bureau made or didn't make a recommendation. What I am here to say, and what we've said again, is that we've seen some steps taken. I outlined them in detail to you, to Jenny, to Matt. What we want to see now is that we want to see these steps sustained over time, and we're going to continue to remain in close touch with our Israeli partners, the United Nations, other partners in the region, to make sure that these steps have a lasting impact on the result on the ground. And if that doesn't end up being the case, the United States will also take appropriate action.
Final one, U.S. Ambassador to UN Linda Thomas-Greenfield last month said U.S. was watching to ensure that Israel's actions on the ground needs to show that it doesn't have a policy of starvation, given that you have had an assessment going on all of the humanitarian aid measures. Can you say that's the case, that they don't have a policy of starvation?
I don't have a specific assessment to offer, Humaira. What I can say is that there has not been a conclusive finding of that, or at least I don't have one to offer from this government. What we are hoping is that these steps and them contributed with the additional steps that we would like to see happen can, again, as I said to Jenny, create the space, these operational changes create the space and the capacity to increase the number of trucks, the types of aid, and to make sure that the product can get where it needs to go. And it is absolutely incumbent upon the government of Israel and the United Nations and other partners to ensure that it actually does that. And we are going to take our responsibility in this incredibly seriously, and we'll be making sure to work hard with all the relevant interlocutors to see that happen. Let me go to Shannon, and then I'll come to you, Sean.